Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. My guest today is my friend Peter, who joins me from a tiny little village in the Tuscan foothills here in Italy, but he's originally from Budapest in Hungary and has lived in a handful of countries around Europe and explored a lot of the world, but he keeps coming back to this country that we both find ourselves in right now, which is Italy, and he has a deep knowledge for this place. So after living here for many years off and on and calling this wonderful country home, he is able to share quite a bit of knowledge on some of the places you may or may not want to go and settle down if you're exploring long-term stints here in Italy. We also talk about my recent move to this country, at least for the current period, and some of the things that are going on in his hometown there in Budapest, which is pretty exciting as well. So a lot of things covered in this one. He's also the founder of Anywhere Consulting and has some great perspective on remote work and the future of work and digital nomadism. So we wrapped it all up into this conversation that's really centered around finding those hidden gems here in Italy and making this country as great as it can be for you. So a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoy this one. Please help me in welcoming Peter to About Abroad. Yeah, I'm actually very interested in the Budapest thing because I actually knew you were from Hungary, but before we connected here today, I didn't know you were specifically from Budapest. And then obviously our work is what's brought us together. And so I find this really interesting because I think it's one of the most underrated cities in Europe. And I'm actually planning an offsite there for a team right now because I think it's one of these places where you can go, you can have a lot of fun, you can see a lot of cool European history for people coming from other parts of the world. This is fascinating to them. It's not expensive. It's very affordable from a offsite coordination standpoint. And it's always been I visited the first time when I was, I think 20 or 21 or something. I fell in love with the city. So anyway, I'm kind of fascinated. This wasn't the intention of our conversation today. We're going to spend a lot of time on Italy, but I love that you're from Budapest and we can maybe have a chat about it as well.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm originally from Budapest, born and raised there. Lived there for, So I'm originally from the countryside of Hungary, moved to Budapest to have the university there and started working from there. So give or take 20 years combined, spent in the city, usually in the central. And yeah, I lived in London as well, many years for work-related issues. Originally coming from the advertising world, by the way, personally. And I moved back to Budapest in 2014. And back then, I moved back because I wanted to become a little bit more like an expat in my own city, right? Because I started working remotely at that time. And that allowed me to kind of unchain myself from the Hungarian work-related issues, political issues, the city issues, everything that was going around in Budapest at that time and still going around during these years and days. The first for 3-4 years or so, with a couple of my friends who were also from Hungary and working remotely, we started a Facebook group called Digital Nomads Budapest. This is a plug. If you want to join there, it's free. It's a Facebook group. We have 6K members. It's pretty much unmanaged, fully organic. All the expats are joining there. They are creating meetings, creating places where they can share their journey together while they are spending time in Budapest, either as a remote worker. Some of them are working for companies like enterprise companies. There are lots of Central and Eastern European companies have HQs in Budapest as well, and they are working there in office as an expat on a work visa or something. and they are curious to meet with each other who are not from the local communities. Yeah, so Budapest is changing, and it has been changing for the last 5 to 10 years, I think. When I moved back in 2014, it was a highly affordable city to live in, I think. So don't compare it to London, obviously, or New York, or these major points. Compare it to Prague, compare it to Vienna, compare it to Warsaw, Krakow, and stuff like that. Compared to those cities, Budapest was more affordable. Budapest was more, well, I'm biased, obviously, but more enjoyable, more things to do. It's more rough around the edges a little bit more than those cities, meaning that the experiences that you have as party, as meeting with people, all the goodies are more, I wouldn't say honest, but like more down to earth. But now, around 3 to 5 years, it became a little bit more expensive, I think, due to inflation and whatever. We shouldn't go down there, but now it's more like a Prague level of like cost of living. So I think it's fair to say that compared to Prague, Budapest is kind of like at the same level in terms of cost of living. And usually I tend to say that compared to Prague, although I love Prague, Prague is more like a gem. Like everything is super packed in, right? I mean, you've been to Prague, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you. I think it's a beautiful way to make the comparison.
Yes, Prague is I wouldn't say small, but most of the things that you would see as an expat who are interested in the Czech culture or Central and Eastern European culture, the history, the city itself, the Bohemian spaces there. Prague is pretty packed. You can walk around the city and see everything within days. Budapest is more like, you have the Buda Castle there, the Buda Hills, you have the Pest side with Party District and so on. You have other interesting areas of the city. Everything is like, it's not that packed. It's also, by the way, a bigger city. So we have like, I don't know, 1.5, 2 million people or so, give or take, with the agglomeration and the metropolitan area of the city. So it's a bigger one and more scattered across in terms of location of the city. So if I would travel to Budapest as an expat, I would take at least a week or two to fully immerse into the city, because you just have the distance between different spaces. But it's worth the shot, of course.
Yeah, it totally is. One of those places that just kind of like, I didn't have, when I went there as a younger person, like I didn't have expectations, I guess. Like I just was like, yeah, okay, I want to go to Budapest. And then I went and it kind of like caught me off guard as to how much I enjoyed it. And I think that's like one of the beautiful things about travel, especially when you can get to a point where you can travel like maybe kind of how we are now, like you and I are spending significant amount of time in different places. And that gives you a chance to like, do day trips to places and to really immerse and maybe get past some of the like glitter and glamour and the shine on the surface and find out that like, oh, maybe I don't love this place as much. But a lot of times you discover these hidden gems. I wouldn't describe Budapest as a hidden gem anymore by any means, but people are aware that it's a cool place to go. But it still is on that tier where it's like, maybe on someone's first trip or second trip abroad, they're going to go to, Rome and London or Buenos Aires or something. And then like at some point they get to Budapest. And I think it can get really fun when you start getting into those cities around the world that you just resonate with.
You know why people do that most of the time? I think is the same reason why I did it when I moved back. It was of course, I mean, I'm from there, so I know the city, but I did move back because it was the perfect home base for European-based travel. The airport is, I don't know, 30 minutes from the city center or so. It's an international airport. You have daily connections, direct connections to most of the cities in Europe. It's, I don't know, like 2 hours everything, pretty much from Budapest, right? It's nothing. And when you are not traveling or visiting Rome, Paris, London, and all the goodies in Europe, you get to live in a city which is more affordable for you, yet still also offers you a hell lot of more than other cities around the vicinity. Because it's packed with culture, so many people around, a lot of expats there. Actually, we are right now, you are in Italy, Trento, up in the Alps. I'm currently in Tuscany, also up in the mountains. And the very reason why I'm here, by the way, is that I have a guest at my flat in Budapest. So I own a flat in the city central, and I rent it out for digital nomads. This is not a plug. I'll never advertise it. But actually, that person found me on that Facebook group that I mentioned, and we discussed. She's staying for 3 months in the flat because she enjoys Budapest and also enjoys Europe. She's from the United States, so usually, what is that? It's like 90 days of visa, I think you have in normally, right? So it's like 3 months, and she's there spending the Christmas, the fall in Budapest, and also visiting all the cities around Europe. Last weekend, she was in Milano just for 2 days. Why not? It's perfect to stay in Budapest for these kind of home trips.
It's a great home base. Like I mean, you rattled off the right reasons. Like it's relatively affordable. You can hop off. Like when you mentioned the thing about the airport, I think some people may not understand why, if you haven't traveled a lot, or you haven't. I think especially in Europe, like airports can be listed as the quote unquote city, but they're like sometimes like an hour outside the city, and you have to take public transport to get there or something like that. Like they're So this can add a big element. Like if you're taking frequent trips, let's say you're going to come to a place like Budapest, for example, spend 3 months there and try to do every other weekend, do weekend trips to other places. Like that adds a lot of friction to the process. It's one of the reasons I loved living in Valencia, Spain, so much, was because I could leave the city center, my apartment in the city center, and in 35 to 45 minutes be at my gate.
You have the airport. Yeah.
Through this security, sitting at my gate in 45 minutes, and because the airport was 10 minutes away or whatever. So that close proximity and the fact that everything in Europe is fairly relatively close, so you can afford to do those hopping off trips. Like if you can find that city that calls to you, that's also affordable and offers that quick transportation with a big international airport, like you're starting to check a lot of boxes. And so good for you. You guys connected through this group. That's awesome.
Yeah. She's amazing, and she loves the city as well. Loves the apartment, thankfully. It's minimalistic, and it's geared towards remote work as well, obviously, because I also work from home. And I did this whole, traveling around Europe and sometimes in Asia in the last 10 years from Budapest all the time. I really don't like to work and travel, so I usually separate that two into two distinctive segments. But it's perfect if you are living in Europe. Yes, as you said. By the way, we had a direct flight to Valencia as well, and I've been in Valencia many times. One of the previous companies that I worked for, one of the team members, he's from Valencia. So we connected there a lot. And yes, it's like, I don't know, 30 minutes or so to the airport, to the central. Yeah, it's pretty convenient. So it takes around a total of 5 hours from Budapest to airport, from door to door.
Door to door. Yeah, they're talking about like flying across a continent and like connecting two major cities in what is, for all intents and purposes, like two different worlds, like Hungary and Spain, Budapest and Valencia, like just different worlds. And that's one of the great things for me about living in Europe that I've enjoyed so much. Is like you can so quickly change your surroundings completely, and that can be driving across a border, or it can be flying across the continent. And where we are now here in Italy, like even north to south, just in Italy, it's so different. It's mind blowing. I'm like in love with this.
And we are both in the north, by the way. Imagine the situation when you are in the north and someone else is in the south. It's pretty much a totally different country. And that's the thing that I love a lot about Europe as well. Of course, I'm from here, and I would never live anywhere else. Is that within hours you can immerse yourself in a totally different culture with almost a limited amount of travel needed to do so. And yeah, you are from the US, so obviously it's if you want to go from the south to the north or from east to the west, it's I don't know, it's like 5 hours of flight and stuff like that. So insane travel, and it's not even that different than you have that experience in Europe as well. So yeah, it's great. I would never trade that to anything else.
Well, I've got to share some context with you. I don't think I shared this with you before, but so you one of the reasons why we're having this discussion today is somehow we got connected through our work a year or 2 years ago. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. But at some point, it became apparent to me that you also had a love affair with Italy, like I did. So I've been living in Spain, but I would often take trips. It was, my wife and I would find 15 euro flights or 50 euro flights or something from Valencia to Spain. I mean, from Valencia to Italy. And we would just often take these trips over to Italy and we just do cooking classes. And we love the culture. We love living in Spain and we loved traveling to Italy. And it was just this like great joy. But at some point we decided we're doing more traveling, like long-term traveling now. And we wanted to spend some significant time in Italy. And for some reason, you and I were connected. We were having a separate conversation about work stuff and it migrated. I don't know if you recall this, but it migrated to Italy. And your enthusiasm, like you're passionate about the remote work movement.
Because I'm super passionate about it, yeah.
Yes, you are. Your passion for Italy, like totally came through the words to me, the chat to me, that we were going back and forth and you knew so much about this country. And I was like, I thought I knew a lot. Like I've visited a lot of Italy. I was like, this dude, Peter, knows his stuff when it comes to this country. So I had it in the back of my mind, like when I circle back, when I get back to Italy, I want to have a chat with you when you and I are both here. And so, yeah. So I have lots of questions, but I thought that's some fun context to share because there's a reason that, that I really wanted to have this conversation. I've just recently arrived here. I'm planning on spending several months here. I think so. Let me start with this. What is your cadence with Italy? Like you're from Budapest, but you live in Italy sometimes. Yeah. And like, let's just back up a little bit and start from there.
Okay. So, and by the way, you came to Italy from Greece, right? Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah. I took a ferry from Greece. Yeah.
Yeah. This will be important because you spent some time in Spain, you spent some time in Greece, and now you are spending time in Italy. So I think you can correlate these three countries together because they are both in the Mediterranean, but they are inherently different in terms of culture. So why Italy? Yeah, that's a tough question, actually. So I run a lifestyle business, meaning that I work remotely as a consultant and mentor for others, meaning that I can decide where I want to live. And that's a big thing. And having traveled everywhere, I think I pretty much visited every country in Europe and some of the countries in the Americas and also in Asia. First of all, I always narrowed down the interest in terms of where do I want to live. So I never wanted to move out from Europe. That's also a big thing because most remote workers, not most, but some remote workers, they sometimes travel to Bali or Thailand or Southeast Asia. There is an ongoing trend to do so. I'm super European, so I can't really imagine myself living in Asia or in the Latin America or anywhere in the American continent. I would only imagine myself in Europe. So that also narrows down everything, right? I also love the climate. It's super important to me because, I mean, let's be honest, winter, fall, and early spring in Budapest, well, it's not the best time to visit the city, I think in terms of the climate and all there is pretty gray and rainy. And also, I mentioned this before, I spent 2-3 years in London as well. So I know a lot about rain and being in the gray. Although I loved London so much, by the way, so that's not offensive, I guess. Um, and also, it means that all of the northern region of Europe pretty much out of the question, right? So I left with the Mediterranean and Central Europe. Now I'm from Central Europe, or like Eastern Europe, and most of the countries are kind of like the same there in terms of culture. So I wanted to change. Arrived short, pretty much we ended up in the Mediterranean. So I had three choices: Spain, Greece, and Italy. I went with Italy because of the culture. And hope no one gets offended in Spain or Greece. But I figured that most of what I call European is either inherently started or came from Italy, from the Roman Empire, of course. And you can still somehow it's palpable still within this country. So I feel really connected to the people that are here, to the culture that they have. Everywhere that you just go, you can see the history. By the way, I studied history in the uni. So it's pretty important to me as to tell the story or get connected to a place through the story, through the history. And Italy, also the food. That's one of the things that's super important. I have a saying that if you are forced to eat from one culture and one culture alone for your entire life, at the end of the day, you will end up with 3 to 4, maybe 5 distinctive cultures of food. You will have the Chinese food because that's so diverse, right? You will have the Indian food that's also super diverse, and you won't get bored at all. You have the French food, which is pretty much the baseline of European cooking. And at the end, you will have the Italian food. So no, seriously, it's not a coincidence that most like restaurant chains around the world they have these kind of food or gastronomical traits all around the world because it's easy to replicate, easy to consume. It's diverse enough to eat well and enjoy yourself.
Can we make room for one more? Can we make room for tacos? 'Cause I'm a big taco guy, so like.
And I think Mexican too. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that would be my only addition.
I'm allowing it. Yes, yes, totally, totally.
I think it's fascinating the process you went through though, because it was sort of like a methodical process of elimination, which
It was a methodical front. Yes.
yeah, and I think there's something really interesting there because I talk to a lot of people like through this show, audience, guests, whatever, that or just in my like day-to-day life that are going through this transition of picking like where they want to live, and it can be kind of like consuming. And I've met people who just like first place that came to them, they pulled the trigger on it, they went and it worked out or it didn't, but they just like dove in head first. And I've met other people who go through this like very methodical approach and figure out what is best for them. And I've done a little bit of a mix in the past. Like I've done a little bit of both in the past. I ended up in Spain sort of on a whim a little bit more than like I didn't pick Spain. Spain sort of presented itself to me and it was like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's just do that. And that worked out. But I'm now at this, the reason I bring kind of like circle back to this is because I'm now sort of doing the same thing and have also like that you did and also sort of landed on Italy as like, this could be a great home base for many of the reasons that you mentioned. One other thing I'll add to that, like, or let me expound upon it just a little bit. One of the big thing there is like weather and diversity. And like, so you have here in Italy, you have like incredible, depending on where you want to be in the country. I mean, you can live in the Alps or you can live on the beaches of Sicily. Like there's a lot in between. But you have diversity and you have being central in Europe and being able to hop off to a lot of different places and have a lot of different diversity in terms of like nature and obviously history and gastronomy. And so anyway, it's just kind of funny because I'm also going through this mental exercise now, and I feel like I'm approaching it more in the Peter vein than I have in the past, which I'm enjoying.
Everyone is getting a bit more intentional, I think, once you travel a little bit more. So, by the way, on the diversity thing, in terms of like climate and mountains and seas and whatever, I think there are only two distinctive countries on the planet where you can do the following. You can ski during the morning, take a car, and then swim in the sea in the very nice weather. You can do that in New Zealand and also in Italy. Some parts of France, some parts of Spain, yes, but in Italy and in New Zealand, you can do it pretty much anywhere within the country. So that's a great thing. In terms of like motivation, I think everyone. So I studied history. I'm wholeheartedly European. I have my full personal motivation to live here. But everyone else also has the personal motivation. So if you are super into sea and swimming and surfing, you probably go with Portugal. If you are into Europe, for example, or you will be super fine with most of the Southeast Asian countries, especially in Bali. But that's also personal motivation because that's important for you. So what I would love to get across is that find what's important for you, be intentional about, and experiment a lot. So once you have the opportunity to work remotely, or unhook the location from your income or your revenue or whatever you do or your work, do some experimentation. Live somewhere for at least a month. So within a month, I think that's like an enough-ish time frame when the honeymoon phase is over from the new country, but you can still experience the great and the bad stuff as well. See how you can deal with that. Italy comes with challenges, by the way, like with any other countries. I don't want to make any puns about the working methods of Italians in terms of how they structure their houses, their insulation, which is totally not an Italian world. But still, it has challenges, but it has their beauties as well. And you personally need to find what is important for you based on your personal motivation and make intentional decisions on where you want to live. Once you are intentional, I'm 100% sure that you will get into this methodical approach that I'm doing right now. Everyone will want to work where they want. Everyone will want to live where they are feeling, inspired, cherished, and homey as they can.
Yeah, something that I've found at this stage in life that's like I'm realizing more and more is really important to me is finding the right balance between city and access to nature. I probably, I've mentioned this several times here on the show. So like, for anybody listening, that's like, we got it, dude. We're done hearing about that. Apologies, but like that is something that I'm realizing is like more and more important to me, and so that's just specific to me. Like I want to have enough of a city where I have infrastructure, like like co-working space and a network of other, both a good combination of locals and expats and nomads, and just some community, and then access to nature, like just being able to get out, and whether that be mountains or lakes or sea or whatever, just to be able to get out of the city. And it's it's a little bit challenging to like check all the boxes, like to find that perfect place. So I think you have to set aside the idea that nowhere's the perfect place. No place has everything. But just you have to get really intentional about what's important to you, and even if that means just like settling on a country, like that can be a good starting point. Because one thing that I bet you've seen this too, Peter, is like this paradox of choice is like plaguing people in our world. Like the people who have suddenly been given all the location independence, they can choose where they're going to work, where they're going to live. when they're going to work. They have like so much optionality, and we already make like 3,000 decisions every single day. Now you're being given all this extra optionality. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Like nobody's, you're not getting a pity party for this, but it's true that I hear people like, I don't know what to do. and so I think it just starts with like you said, like going through some sort of process to really figure out what's important. And once you decide on something, like move forward with it and give it a shot.
Figure out yourself first. That's like job number one. Know yourself, understand what is important to you, understand what is important to your lifestyle. Just FYI, I'm not sure that or I don't know. Do you have kids?
No, I do not.
No, and yeah, me neither. So if we would have kids, for example, the whole discussion would be totally different. We won't be discussing about. Right now, the place where I'm calling from, it's a borgo. It's an Italian name for a really old medieval castle, commune, village thingy. We have, I'm not sure, but kind of like 80 people. Most of them are above 80 as well, by the way. So, so everything is.
You got all the community you were looking for, right?
Obviously, it's like a sanatorium. We have one restaurant that's open on Thursday to Sunday, and that's it. By the way, my personal goal right now is to eat through the entire menu during my stay here. I don't know. But again, if I would have kids, that's totally different. It's school time. There is no school here. There is no bus. You cannot go anywhere from by car, whatever. So you have to figure out maybe online education. Who will the kids will play with? Again, different lifestyle situations command different lifestyle choices. And I think it's important to factor in that what do you want to do with your life in general? Because yes, you have the abundance of choice, but once you figure out what you actually really need and what you actually really want, at the end of the day, those choices will be a narrow path. For example, you said that you want to have the mixture of nature and city dwelling. Italy is a perfect place for that because, for example, yes, right now I'm in this borgo up in the mountains, but 40 minutes of drive and I'm in the Cinque Terre, the very, very famous Italian Riviera and stuff. 40 minutes. So that's it. Oh, by the way, if you're moving to Italy, buy a car, rent a car, get a car, steal a car. I don't care how, but have a car. Without that, and you don't want to, please don't rely on Italian public transportation. Don't. Only maybe in Rome or something, but nowhere else. Maybe the trains that they work most of the time. But yeah, have a car, please.
I think that's really good advice because and it varies like from north to south. That confidence in public transportation changes a lot, right? Like when you start up in the north of Italy, like it's actually like it's done really well, and the trains are nice and all the nice-ish. And then, but as you move further south, it gets more challenging.
Anything below Rome is. I wouldn't say it's not belonging to any kind of public transportation routes or something, but it's really hard to reach things, even with car, by the way. So, yeah, it's challenging, but it has its beauty. But by the way, it's not an Italian thing; it's a Mediterranean thing. I don't know why, but only what I saw that it's only the Spanish that they figured out how to do public transportation. In their country, in the Mediterranean. Greece is even worse compared to Italy, by the way.
By comparison standards, Spain, if you do public transportation in Central Europe, Central Europe, it works like perfectly. It's like, almost perfectly. It's just like amazing. Spain is a step down, but I think, as you said, comparatively Mediterranean wise, it's there's high speed trains between.
It's not Germany, but it's working. So.
But it works, yeah. And then going from there to I spent some time in Germany before going to Greece, And so that drastic difference of like being able to rely perfectly on public transportation, then getting down to Greece and like it just wasn't really a thing, and the infrastructure wasn't there at all. It was like you just realize that it's like, oh, this is a pain point for me. I've gotten accustomed to having this, and yeah, it's funny.
Also, one thing about another thing about Italy is that so I'm building in public a pet project aside from my actual consulting, pay the bills business. It's called Anywhere Italy. It's a plug. Go there and check there. Because what I saw when I arrived here, I don't know, 3 years ago. So I'm now the situation is that I live mostly during the summertime. I live in Budapest. But aside from the summer, usually I live in Italy, and I'm planning to buy a property here because renting is so expensive here, and you cannot really do that on the long term. So
it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent in Italy.
Of course, yes. Well, well. What can you rent? Just to give it a taste, you can rent from Airbnb. Highly inflated because it's Italy, right? Everyone is going to Italy for a summer holiday or so. Yeah. That's one. Or you can rent for longer term. But in Italy, they tend to, because most of the wealth of the country is in real estate, they tend to prefer long-term rentals. So 3 to 2, 2 to 2, 2 to 3, or even 5 years, or even more so signed contract rents. I can't afford that to plan my life to stay there for 5 years or so. There is no short-term rental for like a half a year or a year. There are, but it's rare. So it's kind of like easier to actually buy and I don't know, lease it out later on. And if you're not there, you just rent it out as an Airbnb of yours, and that's it. Who cares, right? But back to the point, Italy is so overrated in terms of tourism, but it's so underrated as a remote work location. There are some people here in Italy who are doing amazing stuff, like Outquarters, Kino Italy. Go check them out. They are doing really great stuff. They are occupying or having a villa or a commune or something, and making co-living programs together for remote workers. But that's not really enough. I actually was, I wouldn't say offended, but I was motivated by the insane, huge popularity of Portugal with remote work. I just don't understand why, when we do have Italy here, almost like the same experience, same price, same everything, but a little more diverse here. Yet in Italy, we don't have these programs like you do have in Portugal. And that's a shame, because everything is geared towards the remote work here. I'm, again, up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. I have zero signal on my mobile, but I have blazing fast internet. I can work online pretty easily. We have so many co-working offices in the cities everywhere in Italy. There is a Italian network as well for co-working offices in most of the cities here. I'm sure that you have it in Trento as well, which is not a big city, by the way. It's a smaller commune-ish thingy. So all the infrastructure is here, yet the whole thing is not popular within remote workers. And I think that has to be changed.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at Lexity. I've lived abroad in various countries, and one common denominator I've found is that dealing with foreign bureaucracy is a nightmare. Trying to navigate visa and immigration waters in another language is not something I'd recommend ever trying on your own, even for the most experienced of us. So when I recently had to renew my Spanish visa again, I turned it over to the pros at Lexity. They've already helped more than 5,000 expats and digital nomads find a home and thrive in countries like Portugal, Portugal, or in my case, Spain, also Italy, France, and Greece. Some very desirable locations indeed. So whether you're trying to obtain your first visa abroad, purchase a property, or work through international tax issues, Lexity's team of friendly lawyers is here to simplify your journey. The team is super knowledgeable, bilingual, and thorough, and I seriously cannot recommend their services enough. My experience working with them has been incredible, and I can honestly say I don't know that I would have EU permanent residency if it wasn't for the help of the team at Lexity. So if you're ready to make your move abroad, then Lexity is offering an exclusive discount to About Abroad listeners. Grab 10% off your first service with the code AboutAbroad2023 and learn more over at Lexity.com in the show notes and start your abroad journey today. If you've made it this far into the episode and you're still enjoying yourself, then I would love to ask a quick favor. Open up the app that you're using to listen to this podcast and leave a quick review. You can do this in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and really just about any platform that allows podcast listening now. If you can't find that in the interface of the app, then scroll down in the show notes and find ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, and you should be able to leave it from there. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. I want to use this as a jumping off point because, as I mentioned before, we were having this online chat about Italy, and your knowledge of the country and the passion shined through so much for me. But you knew things about the country, like geographically, where things were located, what would be interesting to me. You're asking the right questions and then giving me the right answers with literally like drawn out maps and stuff. I mean, annotated maps. It was awesome. So I want to maybe challenge you, because I think everybody listening, you know Rome, you know Florence, you know Venice, you know Milan.
You want the free tips, right? You want the free tips where to go instead of.
Yeah. So let's pull those places off the map for a bit, and let's ask, pretend that I'm asking the question. I'm somebody that's getting ready to venture out. I'm going to spend 3 months somewhere in Italy. Let's talk about two or three of your favorite places in the country after spending many years here over the years. Where would you recommend people go to get an authentic but still like real, a regular somewhat experience, where you can still do things, meet locals or meet travelers. It's cool to go to a burgo. I love what you're doing, but like that probably won't be everybody's dream. So Let's start with that and see where it goes.
Sure. So I don't think that we need to abandon the places that everyone is visiting anyway. So Venice is amazing. Rome is amazing. Cinque Terre is amazing. Yes. But instead of staying there, look for places next to those places. And instead of staying within that place, look for that place to stay next to that, like half an hour of drive, 20 minutes of train ride, 10 minutes of ship drive or a boat drive or whatever. For example, in Venezia, look for Treviso. It's a mid-sized city with all the canals as well, by the way, that Venezia can offer. And it's only 20 minutes of train ride from the centro of Venice. Or you look for Chioggia as well. That's also a small little fishing village-ish thingy next to Venice. 10 minutes of boat drive to Lido de Venezia. Look for
Chioggia, you said?
Chioggia, Chiogga, I think. Chioggia.
Okay. Chioggia. Okay, good to know.
Just
I didn't know that one.
Little south from Venezia. If you're going to the Cinque Terre, everyone loves the Cinque Terre and the Italian Riviera, right? Don't go to the main ones. Understandably so. Don't go to Rio Maggiore and all the cities that are there, or villages, sorry. Go to Lerici. It's Lerici. Lerici. It's a small little village next to these Cinque Terre villages. You can catch a boat drive, half an hour, visit all the Cinque Terre visited villages, and spend a little bit more authentic and less touristy place next to those. Because I think what's important to understand, I think in Italy in general, but I think it's applicable for every other country that are affected by high volume of tourism. If you are slow traveling, your number one goal is to avoid the tourists. You don't want to look and behave and live like a tourist there. So just the off the beaten path is pretty much the next path of the popular path, next to the popular path. So just pick a city which is next to the city that you are trying to visit. If you have a car or a train, it will be a much more authentic experience for you. One more last tip, Ronciglione. I hope that I won't flood an influx of tourists there because it's an amazing place. It's very sacred and small, at least to me. It's 40 hours of drive from Rome. You can experience everything that you can experience in Rome, but not
40
living in
minutes.
Rome. 40 minutes is nothing.
Wow. Wow. How do you say that name again?
Ronciglione. It's Ronclione, I think, or something like that. It's a little bit up north from Rome. And there are many, many countless examples, but I'm usually traveling in the north of Italy, and I only venture to the south occasionally. So please don't ask me about best places about next to Napoli or something, or the Amalfi Coast. But yeah, I can give you some names on the north only.
Yeah, I mean, those are some great suggestions. That what I found is like, for example, I one of the first places I ever traveled to that I like really fell in love with was Cinque Terre, and I just thought it was amazing. But I didn't have the vantage point of being like annoyed by the over tourism at that. I was able to look right past that because I was one of them, and it was just like this. I was a tourist, and it was just amazing to me. But now I've been back a couple times, and it is still like I'm still able to set the mass tourism aside because there is something special about that area. But I love looking for those hidden gems just outside those main tourist areas. So that's a really good suggestion in that regard. And like going down the coast to like the Amalfi Coast, for example, is actually one of my least favorite places. It's like one of the places that everybody loves going to. I really enjoyed seeing Pompeii, but the Amalfi Coast itself was like just too pricey, too like Disney World-y for me. It just didn't feel real. It just felt like all tourists and no real like genuine Italy to me. And I think that's my big warning for anybody coming to Italy. I mean, I actually have probably 4 or 5 open conversations with people right now who are asking for suggestions about making trips to Italy next year and stuff. And these are the kind of places people want to go. And it's like, if you experience that Italy, like, I just don't know that you're going to have a wonderful experience because it's the like depth of the culture here that's really amazing. And so more than probably anywhere else in the world that I've been to, I feel like it's where when you get beyond the tourist traps and find that next tier, exactly as you said, like that's where you're going to have the best experience.
Yes, and also just one last word, invest the time. You cannot really do Italy with 3 weeks, like entire Italy. I mean, I've seen so many people who visited Lake Como, Venezia, Milano, and what else? Firenze, and all they did that within 2 to 3 weeks.
Can I tell you a
I
funny story?
understand. Yeah, please do so.
I think no, this is a total like American thing that we do. We have little vacation time, and so my wife and I, when I first started like traveling together, when we had money finally and jobs and stuff, we would travel over from the U.S. And we did one time. In a week we flew over and we did Rome, Cinque Terre, and Florence in a week. And in our mind, like we did Italy, and I see the pain on your face, and I feel that pain now.
Tick on the map.
Yeah,
it's a tick on the map.
7 days. Yeah,
we have photos that prove that we were there. We can show it to our friends locally at home that we were there. We didn't understand pretty much anything about where we were, but still we were there. Sorry about that. And it's again, you are working online, so you have the ability and the time to experience things a little bit slower. I wouldn't say that you need to spend years and months and whatever, but just a little bit slower. Do a road trip. Do spend 2 to 3 days at any given city, maybe a week for Rome or more. But yeah, one other secret tip: Verona, because it's connected to Budapest a lot. If you've been to Budapest at all, you will understand that the city geographically spun, and just tying back to the Budapest topic, it's a very hilly side of the Buda Hills, and the Pest side, which is very flat. And that's where most of the stuff happening, separated with the Danube River, which is very wide and big bridges and whatever. It's the same like Verona. So Verona is, as a city, it's also separated with a little bit smaller river, but it has also a hillside with castles and stuff, and also a plain side where you do have the central, the central of the city. I really love that place because it reminds me how Budapest should look like if it would be an Italian city. And I spent so much time there. And there's a big digital nomad community there. There's even a startup scene-ish that's growing there. A lot of companies are there, co-working spaces, expats, and it's a good home base if you are traveling within Italy. So it's an epicenter of highways, airport, closely tied to domestic airport travel. So it's a good home base if you want to live a convenient city life, but without the tourists. Not many people visit Verona.
I could not agree with you more, Peter. I swear, like I've could not agree with you more. It's it kind of reminds me of, like, I know this isn't going to really do it justice, but it's like a little Rome in a way, because like you have like the big amphitheater that really looks like a smaller version of the Colosseum. You've got that traditional kind of like Mediterranean architecture. There's a decent enough size airport where like you mentioned flying direct to Budapest. That's the reason I went there, is there's direct flights from Valencia. Originally, the first time I went there, it was because of that. And then I've recently learned it's the closest major-ish airport to where I am now, up in the Dolomites. So I'm up in the Italian Alps. In 1 hour, I could be in Verona. From Verona, I can fly one stop all to pretty much anywhere in the U.S. It goes, there's a connection in Munich and Heathrow. So one stop, I'm back to like pretty much anywhere in the U.S., 14, 15 hours of travel. So that's pretty amazing. Like, and the fact that you're in the like Mediterranean corridor there, but you're also at the foothill of Lake Garda and the Alps. Yeah, it's a pretty sweet location. Like I think it's a little hidden gem.
It's close to Prosecco Road as well.
Let us not forget that.
Let us not forget that. So if you love Napa Valley or any kind of wine region, it's around 30-40 minutes drive from Prosecco Road, where the original Prosecco is made, and it's still being made. It's a national heritage thingy. They have wineries there. It's amazing. It's the really important and interesting stuff and beautiful thing about wineries in Italy, that most of the wineries are 2, 3, 5, even older, 100 years old wineries, still operating, still producing wine, with a rich history of doing so. So if you want to experience any kind of wine tasting in a castello, an old castle, that's no better place to go.
Amazing.
I think that's a really great final word, I guess.
Yeah. Prosecco Road is always a good place to end. I'll be glad to end at Prosecco Road any day. So that I think
don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive.
You take the train. Luckily, the trains are decent in the north. So
of course,
yeah. No, this was a lot of fun, man. Thank you. Thank you also for all the content that you share. We didn't even really talk about what you're doing professionally, but you're a big inspiration in that regard. It's fun joining you on your podcast. So we're going to place links in the show notes to all the work that you're doing on the Future of Work movement. your Anywhere Italy website and the podcast as well. But where can people find you while they're listening? Where should they go to learn a little bit more, connect with you, and follow your work?
Sure, I'm available on LinkedIn. My name is pretty unique, Peter Benei, Benei. You can follow me there. I'm posting daily, but here, this is the plug. Please visit anywhere.italy. It's not ready yet. It's still building in public, but it will be ready. It will be a resource hub for those who are traveling remotely for a longer period of time in Italy.
Perfect. And how about the podcast?
Oh, yeah. So I have a professional side as well. I thought we only discussing Budapest and Italy, man.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
Yeah. But well, we have people listening.
Cool. So I run a consulting business where I mentor and consult companies to build better remote operations. It's called Anywhere.consulting. And I also have a podcast, which you were a guest on pretty recently. It's called Leadership Anywhere. Tune in on Apple and Spotify.
Excellent. All right. Links to all those in the show notes. Peter, grazie mille, arrivederci. And
piacere,
I look forward to Piacere. It was great catching up with you, man. I love learning more about the story and all the things you're doing. So catch up with you soon.
Pleasure.
Thanks again.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.